Wake up! It's the Sleep Unplugged podcast, episode 175, World Series, Performance, and Sleep. Out of the blue. Welcome, everyone, to the Sleep Unplugged podcast. My name is Chris Winter. I'm a neurologist, sleep specialist, and your host for this episode of the podcast. If you're new to the Sleep Unplugged podcast family, welcome. If you're a veteran, welcome back. We are glad you're here. You can get in touch with the show. As always, who you got winning the World Series? Who's your favorite baseball team? What are they doing next year? Are the Dodgers ruining baseball or making it exciting again? Give me your thoughts. Dr. Chris Winter, Instagram, Dr. Chris Winter, Twitter, Dr. Chris Winter, Bluesky, Threads. We have a YouTube page where we post all the video content of our show. We also have a dedicated sleepunplugged.com webpage where you can find out all kinds of information about the show, including archived lists of the top 10 threats to your sleep. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is the last episode of the month. Can you believe it? Halloween is almost here, and then Thanksgiving will be here before you know it. Then it's the holidays, then it's the new year. Bam, bam, bam. And it always seems to start off with the World Series. The World Series, to me, is the beginning of a holiday that does not end until the new year. So, yeah, so and again, you can find updated list of the top 10 threats to your sleep. We are going to do a new top 10 threat to your sleep in just a minute. We have a wonderful guest reviewer. If you are a follower of the podcast, you know at the last episode every month, we give you the top 10 threats to your sleep, and we have a guest reviewer who comes in and gives us their own top 10, and we see how they move up or down. Excited about that. We always start the show off with comments, corrections, criticisms. This week's comment question comes from Instagram. It came from N is in Nancy, M is in man, NM wrote, how do you prioritize sleep when you are so tired, but you're a 47-year-old mom of two who has mild obstructive sleep apnea? I sleep a full 8 to 9 hours at night, but never feel refreshed and cannot tolerate a CPAP. I'm losing my mind. What are my options? I'm so concerned about this. Well, NM, we have talked about a lot of different options for sleep apnea outside of CPAPs, namely surgery, oral appliances, and now we have an FDA approved drug for sleep apnea called Zepbound. So there are three options right there. I think your question about how do you prioritize sleep when you are so tired, we go back to the episode early in the podcast, the difference between being sleepy and being tired. Are you sleepy? Are you tired? Are you both? That would be a great episode for you to listen to. Finally, if you're sleeping a full 8 to 9 hours every night but never feel rested, I would say you are prioritizing your sleep. You're setting aside enough time to sleep. Maybe you're never going to feel rested until you figure out how to treat your sleep apnea. And a lot of that has to do with how significant is your sleep apnea. You can listen to episode 5 of the podcast, Mild Sleep Apnea, Death by CPAP. Does that sound like something that's going on with you, or do you have really bad apnea, can't tolerate the CPAP, and really need to find a CPAP, or, I'm sorry, a sleep apnea treatment for you to feel your best? Thanks for writing in, NM. I think there's a bunch of episodes that could really be helpful to you. Um, Really quick, we're going to go through our top 10 threats to your sleep. This doctor is a very good friend of mine and a massively, massively accomplished sleep specialist and neurologist in Fort Myers, Florida. She's right down the road from me, so I get to see her quite often. I actually saw her out in Seattle. I'll post some pictures of us together. And this is, of course, the incomparable Dr. Farah Abbasi Feinberg. And if you want to look her up on Instagram, I would love for you to find her and follow her. It's at Fab Sleep Doc. FABSLEEPDOC. She is a doctor of medicine. She is a neurologist. She, I believe, got her doctorate of medicine at Drexel University, did her residency up at University of Maryland, right up the road from me when I was at in Charlottesville at UVA. Her specialty is sleep medicine, and even though she looks 10 years maybe 12 years younger than I do. She's got a couple years on me, a little bit of seniority there. And wow, she is so smart. She's board for certified in sleep medicine, board certified neurologist, and has been recognized all over the place for her excellence in patient care. She was previously on the American Academy of Sleep Medicine Foundation Board of Directors from 2019 to 2022. She left. I assume they begged her to come back, which she did. She rejoined the foundation as their secretary treasurer in 2024 and has served on their AASM board of directors since 2019. Incredible. I mean, incredible amount of service. The fact that she left and they won her back. To put things into context, nobody wants me on any of their boards. So we are really excited to have her be our guest risk assessor. So, like all the previous ones, we put to them, hey, smart sleep person, what do you think are the top 10 threats to people's sleep? And we will count them down. We're going to go from 10 to 1. I think I've been doing 1 to 10. I don't like that. We're going to start with the least of the threats and move to the top. Number 10, down 9 spots, chronic sleep deprivation. Number 9, which is new this month. It's been on there before, but it's back. It was gone. Now it's back. Substances like alcohol, THC, nicotine. She wrote you could throw caffeine in the mix if you want to. Number 8, down 3 spots, is stress and anxiety slash mental health. Number 7, new to the list this month, but back, medication effects. I don't know if we've had that before. We've talked about sleeping pills, but she's saying medication effects that a person might be on and not know they affect your sleep, like beta blockers, antidepressants, etc. That's a great one. Number 6, which is definitely new to the list, we've never seen it before, chronic pain. I couldn't agree more. Man, talk about rock in a hard place when you as a sleep specialist are trying to treat somebody's chronic pain. Number 5, up 3 spots, social media scrolling, nighttime technology. Number 4, new, back on the list, late night caffeine use. Number 3, new, and I've never seen it before, too much time in bed. You could call it bed rotting, spending way too much time in bed. I think is really the number one cause you often see of people who have insomnia. They're trying to get 9 hours of sleep. Their body can only get 7, and they're interpreting this as being pathologic. Okay, we're in the top 2 now. Number 2, chronic use of sleeping pills. That's back on the list. Been there before. Wasn't there last month. It's back for this month. And finally, up 6, untreated sleep apnea. We've had untreated sleep disorders on there, and I agree with her. I think untreated sleep apnea is probably the number one thing out there that's hurting people's sleep. So if you snore, get checked out. If you're like NM and you've been told you need to wear a CPAP, wear the CPAP. And if you cannot, you need to find another treatment for that sleep apnea if your sleep apnea is significant enough. So thank you so much, Dr. Abbasi Feinberg. We really appreciate it. Again, follow her at Fab Sleep Doc, Fab Sleep Doc, FABSLEEPDOC. Really appreciate that. Really quickly, we have talked a lot, and we've talked a lot about um, Dasmian pajamas in previous episodes. They've been incredibly gracious sponsors of the podcast. And I might have mentioned it in a previous podcast, but I want to make sure I mention it again that for listeners of this podcast, if you want to unlock a 15% discount on your Dasmian sleepwear, sleep performance wear, performance sleepwear to keep you cool, keep you warm, sensitive skin. They've got it all. They're amazing. All you need to do when you check out is type into the discount code capital WINTER, that's my last name, winter dot 15, and you unlock a 15% discount. I'm going to put a social media post that I've been working on out there so you all see that. And they're going to sponsor another episode of our podcast soon, and we'll mention the code once again. This week's sponsor of this podcast is once again Blue Air. Really excited to have such a great company sponsoring the Sleep Unplugged podcast. Last week, I so basically Blue Air, I already had a Blue air filter in my home, and then they sent me their two additional air filters that were more sleep related. So I already had the Blue Pure, the Blue Pure um, air filter. The last week we talked about the mini restful, which is awesome. It is purifying the air right next to my bed as we speak. And now this week we are talking about the Dream Well. Again, another small humidifier set next to your bed, which has a lot of really cool features. This, the Dream Well, is not only an air purifier, but it is also a humidifier. And it's interesting, when they sent me this device, I said, listen, I live in Florida. It is humid as all get out down here. The last thing I need is a humidifier. What's really interesting is when I was getting my new air conditioner unit put into this house, when we bought the house, we knew we were going to have to replace the air conditioner. And so we got a really, really upscale, nice one. And I was talking to the technician who's putting it in. He said, the biggest thing about Florida and places where there is high humidity is that when you cool the house, dehumidifying is what often makes things feel cool. However, when you're pulling all the humidity out of the house, it can create dryness. And I feel that for sure. When I go out to Arizona for spring training, I feel it there. So this is really interesting in that you can set the humidity you want for your bedroom right next to your bed, and it will monitor the humidity in your bedroom and keep it right at the right level. I love it. And so once it hits that level, it stops putting humidity in the air. So I collect a lot of mid-century modern pieces of furniture because my house is sort of a mid-century modern. I love that aesthetic. So it's a lot of fun to go around and find these places in vintage, stores and stuff like that. Love this whole aesthetic. I just went to Copenhagen and went to all these mid-century, museums of design, and it's just awesome. And I was really worried. Okay, I'm going to put this humidifier on my bedside table. It's going to put this mist out. Remember that humidifier your mom always dragged out when he was sick, and she'd put it on your floor and a little towel in front of it because it just fire hosed humidity right into your face as you were sleeping at night. That was supposed to make your sore throat feel better and your congestion get better. And it warped all the wood in your bedroom. This, you don't see the humidity. It's amazing. It is so fine that even putting your hand, you don't feel it. So it's putting this very, very, very fine amount of humidity into the air that is not going to get on your furniture or on your floor or on you and make you feel uncomfortable. It's got a really cool night light that you can set to different intensities, which is great. And all of it Bluetooths to your phone. And as you can see, if you're looking at the YouTube channel, all three of my humidifiers are on my phone. I can control them all, turn the lights on, turn the lights off, set the humidity. It's great. Check out Blue Air for all your humidity needs. And speaking of blue, Out of the Blue in the title of the song is from Neil Young and Crazy Horse. Hey, hey, my, or my, hey, hey. I always get them confused. I think my, hey, hey, Out of the Blue, hey, hey, my, Into the Black. These were two songs off of his 1979 album, Rust Never Sleeps. It was, I believe, his seventh album, but it was his third with Crazy Horse. I think it was his seventh. It could have been his eighth, but I think no, I'm sorry, 10th album by Neil Young, third with Crazy Horse. Everybody knows This Is Nowhere from 1969, Zuma 75, which has the amazing song Cortez the Killer. And this was off their third album, Rust Never Sleeps. So their very first song on the album is Hey Hey My, and then the last song on the album is, I'm sorry, first song, My, Hey Hey, Out of the Blue. Last song, Hey, My, Into the Black. So Neil Young, 79, will actually turn 80 on November 12th. So he's coming up on his 80th birthday. Happy birthday, Neil Young. We love you here on the Sleep Unplugged podcast. And I put Neil on there and this song because out of the blue, we've got the Dodger Blue and the Blue Jays, and Blue Air is our sponsor. So there's just a lot of blue going on. And Neil Young is not only Canadian, but he is born and bred in Toronto. If you listen to last week's podcast, it was right before Game 6, which they won. And then, come on, George Springer home run for Game 7. How many times have I watched that home run? Incredible. I was wearing this hoodie, if you're watching YouTube, I was wearing this hoodie and really depressed about the World Series. And then George Springer smashes his home run. They hold on to win, and they're in the World Series. Um, Actually, Neil Young's father was a journalist and a sports writer. Neil Young got started, he formed in Buffalo Springfield. For what it's worth, was written by Stephen Stills, but that harmonic guitar that's so iconic when that song first plays, that is Neil Young. Iconic albums After the Gold Rush and Harvest. I love his Crazy Horse stuff. I think Rust Never Sleeps is an incredible album. Powderfinger is on there. Sail Away, Sedan Delivery. I mean, it's just a great album. So I'm going to put Neil Young and My, Hey Hey, Out of the Blue. We'll also put the Oasis cover on the Spotify Music Playlist Volume 4. And I think Lana Del Rey covered it too, but I don't know if her version's available. Anyway, uh, so long introduction, but we did talk about the World Series and the Blue Jays, which is what I really wanted to talk about today. This is an exciting time for me. This was not necessarily a planned episode, but I just felt like it was time to talk about this a little bit. And I've worked in this realm of sports and performance for a long time, and I think I've instructed teams a lot, but I've learned a lot, and I'm still learning. And it all started a long time ago when I did some research about baseball and how travel affected team play. If you're really interested in that research, you can check out episode 12 of this podcast where I kind of get into that research and sport related research. But I really wanted this to be more about what I do for the team. I've had a lot of media people say, what do you do? What does this look like? Can you send us videos of you working with the team? The answer is no. I generally don't. I've never filmed myself working with the team. I consider that sort of a doctor-patient kind of relationship. So it's almost like saying, can we get some film of you talking to your patients about sleep apnea or narcolepsy? These teams and the people within them I consider my patients. So we don't really film those types of things. Although if you look on my Instagram page, there's like little tabs of different things on that home page where you can like store stories. And there's one that's called sport consulting. So I've had some pictures taken over the years if you're really interested in seeing those types of things. So I wanted to kind of talk about how this looks. I have had teams play for championships in the past, not only in baseball, but in other sports. The Oklahoma City Thunder just won the NBA championship this past year. They actually played for a championship many years ago into the Miami Heat. They won the first game pretty convincingly. This was when Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Serge Ibaka, James Harden were on the team. I thought this team was unstoppable, and then they proceeded to lose the next 4 games. So I have won conference championships before, and I have won championships before, but first baseball World Series that a team I worked for won was in 2010, and that was largely due to a guy, Ben Potenzianza, great guy, fantastic mind when it comes to sports and ways he can get his team an advantage. So we were working together with the Giants and came up with all kinds of interesting things related to sleep and travel and what to do with players to get them all the rest they can get because the San Francisco Giants travel a lot. So they won the World Series in 2010 and 2012 and then 2014. And so I started off with a bang. So meaning that I actually, the first 3 World Series that I ever was a part of, we won. And then went again in 2016 with the Cleveland Indians. They're now the Guardians, as well they should be. And we lost that to the Chicago Cubs. And that was heartbreaking because I have worked with a lot of teams, and that was one that I felt like did everything right and cosmically deserved to win the World Series, and they didn't. Cleveland is still a very, very special organization to me. There is a joke in my family that there's a guy who works for Cleveland, and whenever I talk to Cleveland about Cleveland, my sons or my family will say, "Oh, that's the team that your friend works for," because the joke is I have one friend and he works for Cleveland. Sometimes they say the same thing about my buddy at the Oklahoma City Thunder. So I have two friends. I just, they, a team embraced me. They embrace sleep. They just take care of everyone. And I just love their attitude and the way they go about their business. So they lost. And that was in 2016. 2017, the Dodgers, who I work for, lost to the Houston Astros. I think we all know about that one. And then the next year they lost to the Boston Red Sox. And that was heartbreaking as well too. The Astros was really heartbreaking. The Boston was heartbreaking as well too. Somebody asked, "Hey, you didn't indicate that Boston was one of your teams. Isn't it the second time that you've gone to the World Series with both your teams?" I actually was not working for the Red Sox when the Dodgers lost to them in 2018. I didn't start working for the Red Sox, I think, until the following year. And then we skip ahead to the Philadelphia Phillies, losing to the Houston Astros. God. Somebody said, "Do you work for all the teams, or would you work for all the teams?" Yes, but I would have to think about Houston. Houston hurts my heart. They've hurt me twice, both with the Phillies a couple years ago and with the Dodgers. Skip ahead to the Dodgers won the 2020. Remember the COVID World Series when cardboard people were in the crowd. They won that World Series. Sorry. Then the next year, 2 years later, Philadelphia Phillies lost in 2022. 2024, the Dodgers won, and now we're at 2025. Dodgers versus Toronto. I started working for the Dodgers 10 years ago and for Toronto 3 years ago when a lot of people from my beloved Cleveland organization went over as sort of a bunch of people left Cleveland and went to Toronto. And one of those individuals, a guy named Andrew Pipkin, called me up and said, "Hey, I worked with you when you were in when I was in Cleveland. I'm now with Toronto. Would you consider coming and helping us out?" And they too are another one of those organizations that when you walk in, the first time I met them was in Dunedin, Florida, which is where their training center is. Walked in there and was like, "Dear God, I am in NASA. This is like NASA." If I've never been to NASA, but if I imagine what NASA looked like, that's it. And I knew it was in the right place because before I even got there, they had a little place marked sleeping room and they had another place marked like resting room. So, whereas most organizations probably don't even have one, the Toronto already has a napping room and a sleeping room. They're awesome, aggressive about sleeping their players, clearly create culture about that. Because one of the things you can kind of see when you work for a sports team is the first few years can be kind of lean. Nobody knows exactly what to do with you. If there are players on the team that are very senior, they can sometimes sort of run the show. And if they're not interested in talking to Sleep Doctor, nobody's talking to Sleep Doctor. And that is not at all what happened with Toronto. All of their main players were there, clearly not coerced, had lots of interesting questions. We had all different kinds of educational ways we delivered education to the players, both at the major league level all the way down to the minor league level. This year, I literally packed my car full of pillows. Remember the pillow fight from March? Well, that was happening right around the time I was working with the Blue Jays this year. And I just filled my car with all these different pillows, drove them up to Dunedin, and had them all laid out and said, look, guys, like this is something that's really easy. Find a pillow that you love, that you can't imagine sleeping without. Because I always ask players, hey, what pillows do you use? They never know the name of the pillow they use. And I'm really excited to say I think everyone in that organization knows what pillow they use right now. If they don't, they're thinking about it. So I'm really excited that Toronto made it into the World Series. They're a very deserving organization that is extremely kind. I'm not going to read to you. I mean, I am so low on the totem pole, it's not even funny. You know what I mean? Like I'm just like a guy that shows up there a couple days here and there and whatever. Here's a sleep mask. Here's a reference that you could use. Let's get you a sleep study. Let's do this or do that. And if you could read some of the emails they sent, there's like every email is always like, thank you so much for the time you've devoted to these players. We really appreciate you. And my favorite email, I won't tell you who it was from, said, hey, today is Canadian Thanksgiving, and our organization is really thankful for you. I mean, come on. Like, I swear to God, I want that said at my funeral. I want somebody to say, and back in 2025, the one year when two of his teams got into the World Series, one of the teams said, hey, on Canadian Thanksgiving, they were thankful for his help. I mean, that's about all you could really ask for. So, congratulations to Toronto. Congratulations, Toronto fans. The other thing I was thinking about was what was I doing back in 1993 when the Toronto Blue Jays were last in the World Series? You know the answer to that question? I was starting out in sleep medicine. So I think that's really cool that somewhere like as I was like kind of doing some research as an undergrad student at the sleep lab one night. I used to spend the night there doing sleep studies on pigs, and it was a boring night because you had to be there with the pigs all night long. Maybe I was listening on a radio or something to the World Series and happened to be listening to the Blue Jays. I don't have a great recollection of that. I do remember the World Series because I remember thinking, how, wow, Canadians have now won it twice in a row. I remember the Sports Illustrated cover with Joe Carter. Um, but I just think that's such a cool symmetry that here we are in 2025, I'm working for that team that hasn't been to the World Series since 1993 when I started to sleep. But anyway, so if you're watching YouTube, we are doing a wardrobe change from the Blue Jays hoodie to my Dodgers undershirt, my Dodgers workout shirt. Um, like I said, I grew up a Dodgers fan because my mother's father, my maternal grandfather, Everett Saul, was a huge Dodger fan dating back to Brooklyn and just loved the player Pee Wee Reese. And so my uncle Bill, so our family's pretty small. My mother has one brother, Bill, is also a very big Dodgers fan. And when I was young, actually got me a ball autographed by Steve Garvey, who I met several years ago. My idol, because I was always a catcher growing up, was Steve Yeager. And I got to meet him as when I worked for the Dodgers because he was one of the coaches. I mean, I was just starstruck. I mean, it's like, when I was growing up, it was like Bowie and Yeager and Garvey and I don't know, Evil Knievel, Mr. T, maybe. Like this was the triumvirate here, right? When I was small. And so, really quite a hero. So to be, invited to work for them 10 years ago was really exciting. It was also exciting because that was around 2014, 2015. Again, I won World Series with the Giants 2010, 12, and 14. And in 2014, after we won the World Series, we just kind of parted ways very cordially. And they started working, I believe, with Sherry Ma, who's awesome. And I was kind of like, yeah, well, you guys have won 3 World Series now. It's time you trade up. Get, you're getting better pitchers and you're getting better coaches and better front office. You probably should get a better sleep specialist. So yeah, so that was kind of disappointed. But one of the things I tell teams, businesses, or military groups is when I come here to work for you, we're going to start something. We're going to create culture that values and talks about sleep. That's what we're going to do. And if you're already doing that, maybe I'm not that necessary. If you don't talk about sleep or you're putting out there vibes that sleep is not important, we're going to correct that. And then once you get all these things flowing, and I work with your staff, I'm going to make your staff like junior sleep specialists because they're around the players all the time. They're taping ankles. They're the ones who are dealing with sleep. We're going to make them the sleep surrogates. You're going to call me when you got something crazy. Player takes off all of his clothes, runs around the lobby of a hotel, peeing everywhere. Okay, yeah, maybe you should give me a call and we'll deal with that one. But for run-of-the-mill sleep stuff, your staff can handle this. They have to. I can't be everywhere at once, right? So I always tell teams my job is to make myself obsolete. The sooner the better. Where you feel like, hey, we've got this. We don't need Chris looking over our shoulder all the time. We'll call you if we need you. So I was kind of always proud that I felt like the Giants got to that place. They knew what they were doing. I think there was some staff changes and people left. My friend Ben went on to the Pirates, who I worked for many years. So things change. But it was really funny that they won these 3 World Series and we were no longer working together. And then right after I left, who would call but their National League West rival, the Dodgers? And I was like, this is awesome. So now I'm working for the Dodgers as well as the Padres. So we're really ganging up on our old Giants team who, you know, listen, it's all complete luck. But yeah, as soon as they ditched Dr. Winter, the Dodgers and Padres leapt ahead, and the Giants kind of dwelling a little bit there in the middle. Not as bad as the Diamondbacks, but anyway. So 10 years working for them. We've now, lost 2 World Series, won 2 World Series, and this will be the fifth. So that's 11. That's 3 wins with the Giants, 2 more wins with the Dodgers, 2 losses with the Dodgers, loss with the Phillies, a loss with the Guardians, and now Toronto and the Dodgers are back 10 and 11. So, the thing I wanted to kind of close with is I don't think that this should be limited to sports. I mean, if you're listening to this and you run a pharmaceutical company, if you're a military person, if you're the dean of a university, if you lead people, I think sleep needs to be a part of your algorithm. I was just talking to somebody the other day. I said, there are 4 things we can control as athletes, but there are really kind of 4 things we can control in general. We can control our minds, we can control what we eat, we can control how we exercise our body, we can control how we sleep. I'm sure there's probably things I'm not thinking about, but can't control genetics, can't control height. But those 4 things you can really control. And I think if somebody really eats a good diet, follow Chris Moore, More Results, Mohrresults. You want a good nutritionist? Chris Moore is a great nutritionist. Dietitian. God, I always get those confused. Um, just not interested in the fancy, the fads, just good nutritional advice. Follow him. He's great. I've known him for a long time. In fact, if you look on my Instagram, Chris and I presented at Strong New York with Kenny Santucci, and it was a lot of fun. We did a little faux, which is more important, sleep or nutrition, kind of thing. His wife, Kara, is internationally recognized as somebody who is an expert in exercise and movement. So you want to optimize that. One-stop shop, more results. And then you need to think about your mind. What are you doing to kind of clarify your mind and train your mind. Your breath work, yoga, meditation, religion, prayer. There's all kinds of things you can do to make your mind bulletproof. One of my favorite players I got to know with the Cleveland organization was Brandon Geyer. Check that guy out. In fact, I thought about him during one of the playoff games where it was tied up and they needed a run to tie up the game. It was like a one-run game. I believe it was the Dodgers series with the Mariners. And a pitch was thrown inside and the guy kind of jumped back out of the way of it. Had he stood completely still, I think he would have gotten hit by the pitch and the bases were loaded and a run would have scored. And I saw a lot of comments where people were saying person just needed to wear that pitch. And I thought immediately of Brandon Geyer, who really is burning up the frequent flyer miles, going around teaching young athletes how powerful your mind is as a tool. So, yes, sports are great, and we're going to have a lot of fun with this World Series. But I'll tell you, these things are applicable anywhere. And I think that if you're struggling with your own health or feeling stuck, or you run an organization and you're trying to kind of shake things up and maximize the happiness and performance and health of your, think about those four legs of the chair. What are you doing to encourage good nutrition, especially at this time when food is expensive? And it's not always easy to spend the extra money on the fresh, the organic, the whatever. What are you doing to encourage movement and exercise in yourself or with your organization? What are you doing to optimize mindfulness? And how are you promoting and facilitating good sleep? So that's it. Just wanted to talk a little bit about these two teams and how important they are to me, how amazing I think their staff is. And I think that one of the things you're going to see going forward is having a sleep specialist with a sleep organization, with a sports organization. I think 10 years from now, 20 years from now, it's not going to be that unique. It's going to be like having a nutrition dietitian, or it's going to be having an athletic trainer, strength coach. You're thinking, well, everybody does that. There's like you walk around a place and Gatorade's there. Of course, Gatorade's there and bottles of water. Of course, you're going to hydrate. Of course, you're going to have weights in the gym so these players can lift. Of course, you're going to have a sleep specialist because any team that's paying attention to sleep is probably going to win or at least win eventually. And that's really what excites me the most about this World Series. It's almost as if the teams that pay attention to sleep get rewarded. And one more thing before I forget to say, if you look at the teams that I work for or have worked for in the last few years, all of them made the playoffs. And the Cleveland, as we talked about in the last episode, made it in a pretty dramatic fashion. So Cleveland, San Diego, Philadelphia, Boston, LA, and Toronto. Six teams, six playoff spots, all organizations that value sleep. And I want you to value sleep. So get some sleep. If you stay up late watching World Series games or they go into extra innings, and I anticipate they will, take a nap, value your sleep, put it first and foremost. But if you have to stay up a little bit late to watch World Series, it's okay. That's it. Sleep, World Series performance done and dusted. Best of luck to both Toronto and the Dodgers. We'll put Neil Young on the Spotify music playlist. And until next week, sleep well.